show.
Welcome to episode 121 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. The Toronto Maple Leafs are 5-2 to start the season after their first 7 games. Things look pretty shaky the first few games, but Joseph Woll has stolen the show recently. The Leafs riding a 3-game winning streak. They're turning things around. Everything isn't exactly sunshine and rainbows in Toronto. They are 5-2, but they're not perfect. But we are going to break it down and give you our thoughts and opinions on everything that has gone down with this team since our last podcast. And on top of that, there is some stuff going on with the other Canadian teams in the NHL. We are going to talk about the Ottawa Senators. Shane Pinto suspended 41 games for violating NHL gambling rules. And then the province of Alberta is in complete shambles. The Oilers stink. The Flames stink. It's a mess out there. So we're going to get into all of that. But before we do, it is officially time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing today, man?
Very well, Anthony Bruno. As always, happy to be here recording a pod. In case people think that I look a little bit lethargic, I went back to work this week after my long parental leave. And it sucks, bro. You don't realize how good things are until you no longer have them. And that parental leave ruled. But back at a desk like everyone else. And it stinks. But it was a great week of hockey, man. I got to say, there was a lot of action. I feel like a lot is happening. I feel like the season has started. And I don't want to say maybe there's a lot of surprises, but I feel like there's a lot to talk about, especially among the Canadian teams. A lot of drama. So let's do it, man. I think this is going to be a juicy one.
Let's dig right into it, Lepore. Starting with the Leafs, of course.
Of course.
I mean, they look good. Like I said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, because if you look at the metrics, they're still not like totally dominating play. Defensively, there's still a few issues, but Joseph Woll has masked all of that. He has looked unbelievable. To start the season, he has just stolen the number one job from Ilya Samsonov. He's 3-1 with a .961 save percentage and a .133 goals against average. William Nylander, and we talked about this on the last show, every single night he's just out there dominating. Like, he legitimately looks like one of the best players in the world. Yeah. John Tavares is playing well. And I would say most of that is due to the fact that he's playing with Nylander, who looks like an all-world talent right now. Austin Matthews has been dominating night in and night out. Mitch Marner, a little bit of a slow start for him, but the points have still been there. And we've seen Matthew Nyes, Max Domi, and even Tyler Bertuzzi raise their game. So what are your thoughts on what we've seen from the Leafs recently? 3-game winning streak, but are you happy with how everything has been going, or do you still think there's room for improvement, as I alluded to?
I'll start with the games themselves. The one that jumps out to me the most is the Tampa game. And that's because there were just so many things to be happy about. They dominated play in the first period, but Tampa got some power plays and capitalized. And I often say sometimes you have to be reminded of something. Like, you have to be reminded of how good a player is. Kucherov's crazy. Like, people are talking about his goals. To me, it was that assist he made. I think that was the third goal, where he kind of faked a shot and passed it at the same time in front of the net. Unbelievable, right? But we got goals from our stars. The Matthew Nyes Domi thing was awesome. I mean, good to see Nyes finally get off the schneid for the season. Domi, we were shitting on him last week, saying he had to be better, and I think we even called him a ghost. So it's nice to see him get those helpers. And Wall coming in, playing great, and Willie to JT in overtime. So from that side, it was awesome. I think Leafs fans were really happy about that win. And since that game, like you said, Bruno, they haven't been the best with regard to their underlying numbers, but they're getting the kind of results you like to see. Like last night versus Dallas, they're on a road trip. Dallas is an amazing team. Dallas was unbeaten and had not allowed a power play goal to start the season. So the Leafs went into their barn, beat them, and scored a power play goal. So Woll, good again. The Stars showed up. Like you said, William Nylander. At what point, man? And at what point? If he keeps going, and it's Leaf World, so it'll come up. Hart Trophy, McDavid injured, William Nylander. I mean,
oh, Lepore, I like it. I like it.
mean,
It's spicy.
I'm not saying it in the way of a prediction or thinking I think Nylander has a chance at the Hart Trophy. But if he keeps this play up, the take will be had on TSN or Sportsnet to get clicks and comments, and of course to say, "Oh my God, how much is he gonna cost?" I feel like everyone I talk to right now who's not a Leafs fan, like the first thing they say to me is like, "Man, Nylander is gonna be so expensive." Like, okay, right? I know, we're very aware he's very good and gonna be very expensive. Funny how in today's world, again, how everyone knows Michael Lepore loves the cap, people can chirp you for having a really good player because you're not gonna be able to afford him a year from now. Fantastic.
That's the
Just
sad
fantastic.
state of the NHL.
Yeah. But in terms of their underlying numbers, hate to go easy on them when they're winning, but I'm going to, because this team has showed me over the last few years that over a long stretch of time, they will end up being one of the better teams in the National Hockey League when it comes to their advanced stats and their puck possession, attempts on net. So I'm not really and truly worried. And like you said, Marner, we touched on something else we touched on last week was his play. He's playing fine for him, but we expect more. I think that has a lot to do with it. With regard to the puck possession and driving play, he's not at 100 yet. And I think we'll kind of see those two things go side by side when Marner takes off, and I expect him to. The Leafs will get to that next level as far as their play goes because he drives a lot.
Oh, 100%. Because as good as Nylander and Matthews are, and even Tavares for that matter, you could make the argument that the Leafs go as Mitch Marner goes. Because when he's at the top of his game and he's facilitating and making plays and running the power play, like this team offensively is almost unstoppable when he's at his best. I just want to stick on Nylander for a second because I do want to talk about this contract situation, because if the Leafs thought that they were going to sign him for $9 million, 9.25, 9.5, I think that's completely out the window at this point.
You think the 9s are gone, not even the 8s. You think the 9s
he's going to be
gone.
demanding $10 million a year minimum. Now, there's still a long way to go. We're only 7 games in. He has 11 points in 7 games, but he is dominating every single night. I think back to that play that he made in the Stars game. He goes behind the net on the forecheck by himself to retrieve the puck when it was basically a 1-on-3, takes the puck, creates space for himself, shows off the patience, and then dishes to Morgan Rielly for the goal. Like that play shows you everything you need to know about how well he's been playing this season. And he's just taken his game to another level. Last year, 40 goals, 87 points. And, you know, I'm even going to go back to when this guy first broke into the league. And I've talked about this before. At the age of 21, he was the MVP of the World Hockey Championships, not the World Junior Championships. He was the MVP for Sweden as a 21-year-old at the World Hockey Championships. And I always think back to that because I was always waiting for him to take his game to the next level. You know, he was like a 60-point player. Then he had his first 30-goal season. And then last year he has his first 40-goal season, over 80 points, back-to-back 80-point seasons. But I still think there's another level where this guy could hit 90, 95, 100 points. I think he's capable of that. And I mean, my goodness, if he has like a 100-point season, I mean, how much is this guy going to cost? This is going to be almost astronomical.
Yeah. What are you thinking that? You think Willie can hit a hundo?
I think he could be a 100-point player. I think he has the talent to do that.
You're scaring me, Bruno. This guy hits 100 points. Like, what's going to happen?
It's crazy. Like, I don't think he's going to get, and, you know, a lot of people compare him to Pasternak because, you know, they're right around the same age, they're buddies, and Pasternak just signed his big deal with the Bruins last year. Like, I don't know if he's going to get like 11 million. Like, Pasternak's one of the top 5 goal scorers in the world. Nylander's not on that level as a goal scorer, but I mean, Jesus, if he gets 95 to 100 points, I mean, look out, and has another great playoff performance, because if you think about it, over the last 2 to 3 seasons, you could make the argument that Nylander's been the Leafs' best playoff performer as well. So, I mean, it's rough. I don't know what was happening in those negotiations over the summer, but I wish now, looking back, that the Leafs just said, screw it, we'll give you like $9.5 million over 8 years and let's call it a day here.
Yeah. If he goes to the open market, what would be your guess? What's your number if he's on like open market William Nylander?
Probably at least 10.5 million, if not more.
That puts him high on the list, man. I don't know. I don't know where this is gonna go. I mean, I think for me, it's gone from the 8s to the 9s. But if he keeps going, who knows? We'll see. We'll see. It's always fun in Leafland. But good for Willie. See his stick? The new stick he's rocking. So those who are gear geeks know that Nylander, it's a thing players do where they spray paint the bottom of their stick. And Nylander last year switched from Bauer to Sherwood. So what did Sherwood do? They came out with the William Nylander stick that already is whited out on the bottom. How sick is that? I may have to get me one of those. Before, Bruno, before we move on, I have a bone to pick. Okay. I have a big bone to pick. And Bruno's already smiling. Okay. Michael Lepore is a Toronto Maple Leafs fan who lives in the city of Ottawa. Okay. So to our listeners and viewers out there who are from the GTA, it's kind of hard to comprehend, but I don't get the Leafs games on like basic TSN or basic Sportsnet, whoever has the game that night. Most times it's Sportsnet, but TSN gets the occasional Leaf game. Okay. So I have to subscribe to Sportsnet now to get all the Leafs games, and to get every other game in the National Hockey League. Okay. It happened last night, and it happened, was it the Tampa game or the other game? I can't remember. Either way, I pay for this service. I pay to watch hockey, even beyond my bill. Okay. And Leafs games were blacked out because I'm not in the Maple Leafs region. It's like, well, I'm paying for this service because I'm in the Maple Leafs region. Okay. And people who are smarter than I am, maybe you can explain this to me. So they don't work on my TV, like on my Rogers Box Sportsnet Now app thing. They don't work on my TV, but they'll work on my phone. Why is that? Someone explain to me why that's the case. I mean, maybe it has to do with like IP address, like I don't know. But in the comments below, I'd like to see your answers. Please educate Michael Lepore as to why he can't watch the Toronto Maple Leafs on a big screen. I live in Ontario. Like, let's step back for a second, okay? I'm not sitting on my couch and being like, man, I can't watch third division German league soccer. I live in Ontario and I want to watch the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I can't. The NHL never ceases to amaze me about how dumb they are and how bad they are at business. Absolutely horrifyingly bad. Terrible. You do not want people watching your product. Way to go. Just awesome, right?
Oh, it's embarrassing how the NHL lets this happen, because I look at the NFL, for example, or even the NBA.
Yeah.
And I know maybe it's not perfect in the NBA and even like Major League Baseball for that matter, when it comes to like watching all the games you want to watch. But I think leagues, and again, like there's different television contracts. It's not all, it's not all the same across the board. But for the love of God, the NHL basically does everything in their power to make sure that we can't watch games.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. It is the year 2023. We should be able to watch, especially in Canada, should be able to watch every Canadian team no matter what night they're playing during the week.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. Like, never mind, the nationally televised games. Like, that's fine. Hockey Night in Canada, we can all see that stuff. But like, the weekly games when you want to watch, I don't know, Ottawa or the Jets or Edmonton or Calgary, and the amount of times that it's blacked out, it's just embarrassing for the league. And
do you guys get a lot of blackouts over there of like the other Canadian teams?
Yeah, like if there's a game on, if there's like a TSN game, like a regional Senators game or Jets game,
yeah,
like we can't watch that stuff.
See, I think it's, and again, someone comment down below if they can explain it. I think it has something to do with TSN, because I feel like these games that get blacked out are Leafs away games that are on TSN, which are not all the time, because obviously Sportsnet has like all the home games and all that. So I wonder if it's a TSN being an asshole thing.
Yeah, well, basically it's because if the game isn't on, like, Sportsnet has the national rights, so when the game is on Sportsnet, it's typically going to be, it'll be accessible to pretty much like anyone in Canada. Right. Whereas when the games are just specifically on TSN, those are regional games.
Right.
And people just aren't going to be able to watch those games. So it's just so frustrating. And I get there's ways around this, and you can watch games, you know, in other ways. People who are a lot smarter than us and know all the go-to links and stuff to stream these games and things like that. But I mean, it's just embarrassing that it's 2023 and like we can't watch other Canadian teams play on a nightly basis.
It could be something as simple as like, well, like I said, I subscribe to the Sportsnet Now app because they have the contract with the NHL. TSN's like, well, you can't watch it on the Sportsnet app. And it's like, guys, you couldn't have come to an agreement where people can watch the games. You're trying to create fans here and get more people to watch. It's horrible, man. It's horrible.
Gentlemen across GFP Nation, I have an urgent message for you. This episode is brought to you by MANSCAPED. The brand that took your balls to space is now launching them into the Ultra Sphere. Introducing the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, featuring a new cutting-edge design and next-generation dual skin-safe blade heads for different shaves. It's pretty much a spaceship to take your boys downstairs to the next level. Join the 9 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with the brand new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using our exclusive promo code GFP20. Manscaped just never disappoints, Lepore.
Bruno, when I got the Lawnmower 4.0, I bragged to everybody. Everybody out there who's like, oh, is it just like a razor? Is it just like something you use on your face? Oh, no. Oh, no. It was far superior, and I was very, very impressed. And those who know me well know that I'm a difficult man to impress. But I will say, I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it was possible for something to come out even better than the Lawnmower 4.0, and Manscaped did it. The technology they added to the 5.0 is absolutely awesome. A lot more tools you can use. There's way more versatility. As Bruno said, manscaped.com, GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping.
Manscaped is always taking things to the next level. They're always making you look and feel your best. And then, of course, because of that, you're going to perform your best. And I'm not kidding when I tell you that I love all of their products. Like these guys just never miss. And the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, it's an incredible experience. So please go to manscaped.com, use our code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. That is 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using our code GFP20. All right. Joseph Woll, Lepore. I want to talk a little bit about this because we're only 7 games into the season, but I think it's safe to say that he has stolen the number 1 job.
Stop right there, Bruno. Everybody go to our previous show and look at the comments that were left directed at your boy, Michael Lepore, after saying that Joseph Woll was the starting goalie of the Toronto Maple Leafs and we were done here. But carry on, Bruno.
I love it. I love it, Lepore. You gotta boast, man. When you have a great take, you gotta remind the people that you have a great take. So
you've given up on Sammy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, I see someone who's better. So we're moving on. Sorry, Bruno. Carry on, please.
I mean, you should be boasting all day long about that. And listen, there's other people in Leafs Nation who have told me, friends, people on social media who also had similar feelings as you did, Lepore, that Joseph Woll would eventually be the team's number 1 goalie. And I didn't think it would be this quick, but holy shit, he looks incredible. And I don't want to jump the gun too much. Like Max Domi said that Woll reminds him of Carey Price. I know that's a little bit outrageous.
That got taken out of context or something, because he said in terms of his personality. And his
presence in the net. He's calm.
Yes.
He's fundamentally sound. Like that's all Carey Price when you
Yeah.
think about the way that he plays. I mean, he just looks so much better in the net. Like Samsonov, listen, when Samsonov's on, like he had a really good season last year. When Samsonov's on, like he could make incredible saves. Like he's great at times, but when he's off, he is just out of control, flopping around in his net. Whereas like Woll's the complete opposite. Like if he's playing well, if he's playing poorly, he's always fundamentally sound. He's always calm in the net. I think it's a wrap at this point, man. Unless Joseph Woll just completely falls off the face of the earth and starts allowing 4 goals a night out of nowhere, he's the number one goalie for this team. And I think, and now I don't want to say he's going to play like 55, 60 games, but he's going to get the bulk of the starts this season.
Yeah. I am nervous because, how do I put this? Michael Lepore is very matter of fact. Okay. And if you look at Joseph Woll's NHL numbers, and even if you include his recent AHL numbers, they don't make sense how good they are. Like he's got like a 9.4 something NHL save percentage in 15 or 17 games. It's outrageous. So that's going to have to adjust. And it scares me because, well, what does that mean? It means he's going to have to be far below that and like far below 900 to make it normal. And even if it is a good 920, well, it's going to have to be bad for a while. So I do take some solace in the fact that Sammy's still around. And I think Sammy is a goalie by NHL standards today. But I'm interested to see how things play out for Woll in the near future, if he can keep his play strong. And when things do adjust, because they will, how he reacts to that. And so much of being a goalie is between the ears. And it's even worse when you play in a market like Toronto. So I just hope this kid can stay straight. And I mean, I'm not going to take Max Domi's word for it, but he seems to think that the kid's got the right demeanor. I think with Woll too, he was the goalie for the US in the World Juniors. He was a top prospect, and he had 2 major injuries, and then there was COVID. People thought he was going to retire. I remember reading articles saying he was done. And here he is, man. It's a great story. It's great to root for someone like that, and I like it. And the last name Woll, like the marketers are just like licking their chops of like what they can do with this, and like Leafs PR. It's gonna be hilarious.
Although I should add that now it seems like his name has changed actually to Woll, which I think is like the proper pronunciation.
Yeah.
It's always been the proper pronunciation, but
Yeah,
we've just all called him Woll. I think I'm just going to continue to call him Joseph Woll.
me too.
Sorry,
Why
man.
not?
Like no disrespect, but I mean, it's like you said, it's literally the perfect name for a goalie who's actually good. So yeah, embrace this, Leaf fans. I think we have a stud goalie here, and I don't want to jump the gun. I know I had similar thoughts when Jack Campbell looked incredible, but he's bigger than Campbell. He's more fundamentally sound than Campbell. He just looks better than Jack Campbell. Like I'm comparing him to like because there was a time when Campbell was like really good.
Yeah,
when he was
all-star
elite.
game.
Like he had a really good stretch. He also had a really terrible stretch, but there was a time where we were like, oh my God, like Jack Campbell's so much better than Freddie Anderson. He's our goalie of the future. And then he became terrible. But anyway.
Did I hear right? Marner's nickname for Woll or Wall? now I'm gonna guess every time I say, am I saying it properly or am I saying it the way I should say it? His nickname, they call him the Brick. Did I see that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not bad. So they're already playing it in the room. I like it.
Yeah, I love it. It just seems like the team has rallied behind this guy, and Ilya Samsonov better figure his shit out, or he's going to be riding the pine most of the season, making a decent paycheck this year. But if he continues playing like this and Woll is playing out of his mind, Samsonov's not going to play more than like 30, 35 games. So we'll see how it plays out,
man. He looks good.
Anyway, let's move on now. We got to talk about some of the other Canadian teams around the league, and we are going to start things off with the Ottawa Senators, the team that I was told every year for the last like 4 years, they're going to take a leap. They have all these young studs. Their core is in place. It's time. It's time for the Senators to take that leap, to make the playoffs, to be one of the top teams in the Atlantic Division. Through 7 games, the Ottawa Senators are under 500 at 3-4. Thomas Chabot is now out 4 to 6 weeks with a fractured hand. Artem Zub is out of the lineup. Brandstrom's out of the lineup. And Shane Pinto remains out of the lineup because not only does he not have a new contract, a bombshell was dropped this week that he has been suspended 41 games for violating NHL gambling rules. But the whole situation has been kind of murky because the NHL said that he didn't actually gamble on hockey. He didn't place the bets himself. According to reports from Elliot Friedman, this is a situation of proxy betting where people who have access to one or more of his accounts, I don't know how many accounts this guy has. It's apparently a situation where he has friends or individuals who are placing these bets for him. And it's just so stupid because, you know, we've seen what's happened with some of these soccer players getting suspended, NFL players like Calvin Ridley getting suspended for the whole season last year. Like, these players just don't learn. It just seems like they're going onto these gambling sites, they're making accounts, and then they're stupid enough to place bets, or they're getting people to place bets on their accounts. And now he's going to be out 41 games. So it's just kind of a disaster of a situation for the Senators right now. And as I said before the season, they're probably going to miss the playoffs. And I want to hear your thoughts on it because they're obviously your second favorite team. You have boots on the ground in Ottawa. What is the feeling right now around this Senators team, Lepore?
Well, I was lucky enough to be taken to the game against Buffalo, and the mood was not good. They had that amazing comeback in the end to make it close. But I thought that was a really big game for Ottawa because here you had Buffalo coming in. They had played the night before, and it seems like the discussion in the preseason was Ottawa Buffalo. That was the debate. Who's going to be that team to fight for a wild card spot or move up in the Atlantic? And the Sens had their pressure because they have talented players. They couldn't get a save, man. Forsberg did not look good. Korpisalo, he was good last night against the Islanders. Sorokin was bananas. But fans haven't been the happiest with him. I'd be lying if I said that the vibe I'm getting from Sens fans right now is a little bit of fear. Like, here we go again. Because Bruno, like these things you shot off, right? The Pinto situation, total eye roll. Like, give me a break here. Center depth was supposed to be a position of strength for this team, and this happens. Okay. Zub out, and Zub's a good player, man. Zub's important to that team. The fans here love him. Solid. Chabot, I mean, take your pick. He's either best defenseman, is either second best defenseman. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Brandstrom's a guy who can move the puck, and I love because he's actually from the same small town in Sweden that my wife's from. So I was kind of root for him on the side. He goes down. What happens in situations like this is we're going to find out who this team is. Okay. And people are going to say, you're going to hear the take that if things do go poorly, oh, look at all these injuries and the Pinto situation. Like, people are going to point to that, and that's going to affect the record. Of course it is. Okay. But we'll see how this team fights and how this team battles. And I remember speaking about this when we did our season preview, and I said, funny how one of them's injured now, but I said I was really and truly circling Giroux, Tkachuk, and Chabot, because those are the three guys as I see as the vets and the leaders on that team. And things are not going to be easy. I stress that. Things are not going to come easy for anybody. And this is a team with very little experience. And I'm going to use some comments made by some Ottawa reporters here. They called them out and said this team lacks maturity. Okay. So I looked to those three guys to keep the team in line. And for the sake of the city and for the sake of the fans, I hope they can do it. I mean, the Chabot thing's tough. Injuries happen. I mean, maybe they can figure it out, like moving around their depth or changing minutes. But when you lose Zub and Brandstrom, Like, I don't know. I mean, Bernard Docker's playing. He was horrible in the preseason. Lassie Thompson went through waivers and they got him back somehow. So I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen to the Sens because they're a team with a lot of talent and they have the potential to overcome something like this or this type of situation. But you're as good as your record is. I always say the season's 82 games. 82 games. Now, yeah, Shabbat's out 4 to 6 weeks. That sucks, like I said. But show me who you are, Ottawa. And I don't think any Sens fan can really say otherwise because, come on, you don't want to be making excuses already about the distraction of the Pinto thing or these injuries. Like even Brandstrom and Zub. I mean, half the Sens fans trash Brandstrom in the city to begin with, right? So let's not use that as an excuse. And Zub, I think, will be back soon. But we'll see, man. It's not going to get easier. The pressure is going to get more and more. And I mean, actually, I will say it at the game, Bruno, the other day. I forget what the score was when it happened, but there was the fire DJ chants in the building. I don't know if people caught that on TV. And actually, I messaged a buddy of mine who's at the game. He's a Montreal Canadiens fan. I was like, are you the one who started the fire DJ chants? But yeah, feeling the pressure all around in Ottawa. And it's great because as a hockey fan, I like to see it because we'll find out what this team's made of. There's pressure on you. You have injuries. There's pressure on the coach. You had expectations. Let's see what happens. It's going to be a good book,
There's
man.
no more time to wait around for this team. And we talked about this either on the season preview episode or the episode right after that about how many home games this team has to start the season. I just
15 of 19.
16 of their first 21 games
there you go.
Are at home. If you can't get off to a good start, and that's been the issue for this team, they get off to terrible starts, at least recently, and then they're trying to dig themselves out of a hole. And last season, Senators fans got so excited because down the stretch they got hot, and people thought, oh man, this is their time. Stützle's taking a leap. Brady Tkachuk's having a great season. The power play is humming. They could actually sneak into the playoffs. And then, the last 10 games, they couldn't get the job done. They can't get into that same situation. 16 of their first 21 games are at home. There is no excuse for this team anymore. Like, if they can't get it done this season, if they don't make the playoffs, and never mind make the playoffs, we could be like 40 games in, and DJ Smith could be gone. I mean, I don't know if they're going to make a trade, really, because really their core is in place, and now they're having these injury issues. Pinto's out for 41 games, but this could get dark real quick in Ottawa after there was so much hype and so many expectations for this team heading into the season.
Yeah, I'll tell a little story and then we'll get into the Pinto thing specifically. So I was in the locker room. It was like last season. Okay, like last NHL season. So we're going back now. I'm sitting next to this guy in the room, small talking about hockey and this and that. And it was one of those like, my neighbor's friend has a cottage next to so-and-so. One of those stories.
Wait, hold on, Lepore. You were in the Senators locker room.
Yeah, no, I was in the Fred Barrett Arena Leitrim locker room talking about hockey with some 40-year-old accountants.
Okay, because sometimes you drop some juicy, tidbits
stories
where you're talking to like former NHLers, and I know you don't always drop their names and stuff, but for a second I thought
no.
You were in the Senators locker room.
You know what though? I'll tell you another story, Bruno. I've been in the Senators locker room because I used to be work in commercial flooring sales, and we had the Senators contract, and they had a massive flood, and this big pipe burst, and it was shooting out for like 40 minutes. And the entire work area, the locker rooms, the coaches' rooms, everything was just flooded. So they had to replace all the flooring. So I went underneath and went in. I was in the locker room. And what was cool is I saw their boards, and I took photos of this. This is like secret content. They had boards of every team in the NHL and how they saw their lineup and their depth and how they would attack it. I remember finding it funny because it was when we just drafted Matthews. And I kind of put my eyes up like this. They said the Sens thought Kadri and Matthews were going to play on the top line together.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Two centermen playing on the top line together.
But anyways,
that's why this organization can't figure their shit out.
Back to the original story of Fred Barrett Arena. So this guy tells me that his neighbor's friend has a cottage next to Claude Julien, like one of those stories, like I said. And he said that he was told that Claude Julien wants the Senators job hard. hard he wants to coach the Ottawa Senators. And sure enough, this week, there was a buzz about Claude Julien and him being the replacement for DJ
Don't
Smith.
even get me started with another recycled coach. I know he has a good track record. Like, Claude Julien's a respected coach in this league, but are we really going to do this again?
I think with Claude Julien, Bruno, in this case, like the Sens need the opposite of what the Leafs needed. Like they need structure, they need discipline, and this team fucking sucks defensively, man. Their wingers are absolutely terrible on the hash marks. If there's anyone who can clean it up, I mean, Claude Julien might be the guy. So, like, I wouldn't hate it. If I was a Sens fan, I wouldn't hate it. I would do the like, oh yeah, another recycled coach who has been around for a while. But you could do a lot worse than Claude Julien. You can get like Michel Therrien or something.
Don't even. I don't want to hear. Don't even mention like Ken Hitchcock. Like I don't even want to hear these recycled coaches. Please don't mention anyone else's name because it just drives me insane. Because the NHL is an old boys club. Anyway,
Shane Pinto.
Okay, we don't have to go too long on this. Like my thoughts on the situation are that I don't have an issue with any of these players betting on any other sports outside of the NHL. Like bet on football, bet on baseball, bet on golf, bet on literally bet on the Russian Premier League. Like, I don't care. Just don't bet on the Ottawa Senators and don't bet on the NHL. Like, play your fantasy football, play your fantasy basketball or whatever the hell else you play. Like, I do all that stuff. And again, I'm not a professional athlete, but I have no issue with these guys gambling on sports outside of hockey. Just don't be stupid enough to bet on the NHL. Or even worse, bet on your own team, which, again, he hasn't been accused of doing that. But, you know, these gambling companies, they have all our information. When you're signing up for an account, especially in a regulated market,
they take your
gambling
passport.
Is becoming more and more regulated across North America.
Yeah.
Like, they have all your information. So to be stupid enough to have an account open, Shane Pinto, and bets are being placed, I mean, it's just stupidity, and he deserves the suspension. But again, I have no issue with these guys betting on other sports, especially considering how much money has now flooded in to not only hockey, but all leagues across the board from all these gambling companies. Like the Senators have a Bet99 logo on their helmet. Yeah,
is it Bet99 or Betway? Someone made that joke saying, brought to you by Betway is the Shane Pinto suspension. The story, we don't know anything. I think this is one of those stories because some things add up and then some things don't. So it was Garriock who reported, the Ottawa Sun writer, first that it was actually the company that it was a company that has a sponsorship deal with the NHL. They went to the NHL and said Shane Pinto has some suspicious activity on his account. Now, what does that mean? Okay. And then Friedman went on to say that he's heard that like someone was betting under his name, like you said. But even with that, what people like going, what's wrong with that? There's rules. There's very strict geographical rules with gambling, right? So I don't think I can just bet in Florida, like on one of my apps. It won't allow me because there's different laws down there. But let's say I'm in Florida. If someone logs into my account here, well, that's wrong. that can't be done. One thing somebody pointed out, and maybe we're getting a little too calculated here. If you look at all the verbiage used to describe what he did, it says we were unable. It says that they did not find anything regarding betting on NHL games. So someone brought up, it keeps saying games. So does that mean futures?
Who knows? Something else? And that's the thing. Like, we don't have
over-unders,
any information. Yeah. Did he bet on the Senators to miss the playoffs this season?
Well, yeah. But imagine that came out. That would be the greatest hockey story in the history of the world. A player betting against his team to make the playoffs.
He's like, we have no cap space. They can't sign me. I'm their third line center. Look
at our goalie.
I'm betting on my own team to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
That would be legendary.
The other thing Friedman pointed to was interesting. And I think it might be one of these things. He mentioned the NFL example where the guy was caught, and he said the guy placed a bet on another sport, not the NFL, but he was in a Titans facility. He was in his home team's
facility, which is prohibited by the league.
Right. And I mean, I don't know. That one's kind of weird. So he thinks it's something like that, this weird rule that Pinto broke. But even then, doing that, 41 games, that's why I think there's something fishy here. Like, I think there's something very, very serious, even if it wasn't him betting on the NHL or his own games or something like that. But for it to be this quick, 41 games, no challenge, nothing, the Sens just accept it. Pinto writes his letter of apology right away. It must have been something pretty horrifically bad. And what I fear and what I hope, and this is not me saying this is the case, this is my mind working as to what these things can be. I just hope it's not something where he's just mixed up with the wrong people, where he's either pressured by someone to do something, or his power has gotten him into certain, I say power, he's a professional athlete, has gotten him into certain circles. And we've seen it happen in the past. So I just really and truly hope it wasn't something like that. I hope for his sake and for the reputation of the NHL that it was just some weird technicality similar to that NFL one.
Agreed. I hope it's nothing serious. I hope he doesn't have a gambling addiction. I hope he's not involved with some shady people. Like, that would be a rough situation. I hope it is exactly what you said, that it's just like that NFL player who placed the bet at the team facility. It's against the rules. It's kind of innocent. It's stupid. It's innocent, but also stupid at the same time.
Yeah.
But you have to take it really seriously because, again, now all of these leagues have partnerships with all these gambling companies. So everything is under a microscope. And now you're going to see the league is probably going to come out with like a very clear and detailed list of what these players can and cannot do when it comes to gambling. So I hope that Shane Pinto figures his shit out and moves on with his life and comes back from the suspension. But I still don't think the Senators are going to make the playoffs. And on that note, Lepore, we must move on to the province of Alberta.
I was going to say really quickly, Bruno, Shane Pinto, way to feed the stereotype, bro. Last name ends in a vowel, from the New York, New Jersey area, and you're involved in some sort of weird gambling thing. Thanks,
Typical.
Yeah, those Italians, man.
All right. The province of Alberta.
Not Italian. He's not Italian. His name's Shane. That doesn't count. So
yeah, he's not a true Italian. I mean, I don't know a single Italian with the name Shane.
There you go.
But anyway, the province of Alberta, Lepore, is in shambles
coming down
now because the Oilers stink. The Flames stink. Connor McDavid is injured. We got to start with the Oilers, my second favorite team. Everyone knows they're my second favorite team. And when the Oilers are struggling, you know that Anthony Bruno is going to have something to say. Half of Sportsnet's workforce, and it might even be more, it might even be like 65, 70% of Sportsnet's workforce picked the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup. Everyone, year after year, gets more bullish on the Oilers and their chances of actually making it to the end and hoisting the trophy above their head. But a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, Lepore, has started the season 1-5-1 with a minus 13 goal differential. They are 31st in the NHL. The only team worse than the Oilers right now is the San Jose Sharks, who absolutely fucking stink.
They are not an NHL team, man. What do they have, 8 goals in 7 games or
They're
something?
just an absolute embarrassment.
Wow.
They're going for the number 1 pick. They have no interest in winning hockey games. And as you said, they have 8 goals. 8 goals, 28 goals against. They are terrible. But they are the only team right now worse than the Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid is injured. Who knows? They're saying he might be back for the Heritage Classic. And now this matchup, Oilers Flames in the Heritage Classic, this is like the game of the season.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine the Oilers lose again? Because here's the thing, the Flames stink right now too, but they didn't have the same expectations. People weren't heading into the season saying that the Flames were a Stanley Cup contender. A lot of people were saying that this Oilers team was ready. Like McDavid, Draisaitl, the time is now. And they still suck. Their goaltending sucks. Defensively, they can't figure it out. Offensively, when the power play isn't operating at historically great levels, they just aren't the same team. And I don't know how they dig out of this, because with every loss here, they're going to have to play at a more ridiculous pace just to get into the playoffs. Like if they lose again to the Flames in the Heritage Classic, they're going to have to play at like a 100 point plus pace just to get into the playoffs. So do you think the Oilers are going to miss the playoffs? Like, is this in play? Because I think there's a chance that this spirals out of control, depending on the severity of this McDavid injury.
Yeah.
If he comes back too early and he tweaks something, but this could get really ugly in a very short period of time here for the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, I don't know about, I mean, missing the playoffs. We are early in the season, and when a team gets out to this record, it's not necessarily a hot take to point to, but man, that would be disastrous. Actually, what I've been meaning to look up? What's the line right now on Oilers to win the division after their start? Because I don't think that's a stupid bet right now. Because David comes back, they go
I'll
full
go check
throttle.
it out.
Because they always seem to go on a stretch in the mid end to the season where they just dominate. It's one of those situations where things are going everything wrong for the Oilers. I have their team stats in front of me. Okay. They're not scoring. And to say that about an Oilers team is actually crazy. They're 26 in the league in goals. Shots on goal, they're average. Their power play is 26%. That's usually around the top of the league. Right now it ranks 8th, but 25% is usually where the best one lies. These are the two things to me, okay? Guess their shooting percentage, Bruno.
Yeah, it's bad because I was looking at this as well. At 5-on-5, I think they're under like 7%.
Yeah, overall 7.8%. You're not going to win games. So that should adjust. That should adjust for them. And the big topic, the goaltending, okay? Skinner and Campbell. Our boy, who we love, Jack Campbell, is rocking a 4.35 GAA and an 8.77 save percentage. Skinner is rocking a 3.93 GAA and an even worse 8.46 save percentage. I don't believe in either of these goalies. I don't think either of them are true number one goalies, but I don't think they're this bad. And I think that will adjust as well. So my thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers and how the season's going to go. I think they're going to turn it around. I think there's too much talent there. And with McDavid back specifically, there's too much talent there for them not to turn it around. But similar to what I said with the Ottawa Senators, it's times like this where you find out what a team is, if they can get through this. And that one stat of how they lead the league in turnovers, in defensive zone turnovers, that's a bad stat. But someone else pointed out too, weird, like the goaltending thing, like how I say, the goaltending should adjust. Apparently, like Darnell Nurse, CC, they're talking about other D-men, that their underlying numbers are decent. Like they're not giving up as much as it would appear based on like the way they're losing. But
the Oilers in general actually have decent underlying numbers.
They do.
They're not terrible. But their goaltending stinks, and they're not scoring at, never mind at 5-on-5. You mentioned their shooting percentage in general. And that's how it is early in the season. Like when you see teams at the top of the standings or even the bottom of the standings, sometimes it's a little wacky where everything they're shooting is going in the net or their save percentage is through the roof. So I think it's a case of we will see some positive regression with Edmonton. We see this every year where they just go on a crazy heater. Yeah. When it seems like they're falling apart, then McDavid and Draisaitl just play out of this world and they get back on track. So I think they're going to get on a heater. They're going to get back into the playoff race, but they're not going to win shit. And when I say win, they're not going to win the division. They're not going to win the conference, and they're sure as hell not going to win the Stanley Cup with this goaltending and with this defense that they have in place right now. Never mind just their defense core, their team defense in general, very similar to the Ottawa Senators, where I don't know if it's coaching, I don't know if it's personnel. I think it's a mix of both. They're just not good enough defensively and goaltending wise to win a cup. And I'm looking at one sports book right now. Vegas is a -120 favorite to win the Pacific. The Kings are second at +450. And the Oilers are third right now, 6-1 to win the Pacific Division.
I think I take that bet, Bruno. Am I wasting my money?
I think you're lighting your money on fire because Vegas is off to such a great start where they just need to play regular Vegas hockey, and they should probably win the division.
Well, it's crazy because
Edmonton now is just they're digging a hole. I know it's only 7 games, but they're digging a hole, man.
It's like, well, what's the swing? It's like they're 5 games under 500 and Vegas is like 6 games over. So yeah, it's already a really big swing. So, but 6-1, I mean, dabble with it. Why not?
Okay. All right. If you like lighting your money on fire, then be my guest, man.
One positive note of the Edmonton Oilers, those Heritage Classic jerseys. I like it. I'm down.
You get the stamp of approval from Lepore. When it comes to your jersey, you are doing something right.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, there's really nothing else to discuss about this team. They stink. I don't think they're going to win a Stanley Cup. I don't know if they're going to trade for like prime Patrick Watt at the trade deadline or something. But unless they do something like that, then they're not going to win anything. Let's also talk about the Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
We all thought Daryl Sutter was the problem. The entire team hated his guts. Huberdeau last season was terrible. Just across the board, nothing went right for them. And now they've started the season in a very similar boat to the Oilers. They're 2-5-1. Their goaltending sucks. Right now, the Calgary Flames, okay, looking at 5-on-5 goaltending, they have the worst 5-on-5 save percentage in the NHL. Dead last at .878. Huberdeau off to a slow start again, 4 points in 7 games. Lepore, his contract just kicked in. Jonathan Huberdeau is making a shitload of money over the next 8 years. Like, it is insane, okay? And his contract just kicked in. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be the same player. Maybe I'm being a little bit dramatic because he just had a 115-point season less than 2 years ago. But my God, this team they're in trouble, man. At least the Oilers have McDavid and Draisaitl. This team doesn't have a lot to hang their hat on.
Yeah, I remember us being pretty bullish on the Flames in the preview show, and I think we both picked them for the over in the over-under bet. But if you're the worst in the league at stopping the puck and your stars aren't doing well, you don't have much of a chance. Huberdeau, you said it, man. He's got 2 goals, 2 assists. Nazem Kadri hasn't scored a goal yet. He's got 1 assist in 8 games. Nas, man. Like, rooting for you, bud. Just, it's not a good look. And I watched their game the other night. The body language is brutal. And that's not the Flames team. I keep going back to that Flames team 2 years ago where they were awesome and they were amazing to watch. And they have a lot of underrated guys. Like, I love Anderson on the blue line. I always kind of rooted for Markstrom, a big Swedish goalie. Why not? Does his thing, and he was good. But as far as the Flames go, I don't know. Because you mentioned San Jose. Is Calgary in that boat where they should just tank it? Like, is this a complete lost cause? Because we were bullish on them. I thought Calgary was going to make the playoffs, and who knows, maybe they still will. But if someone said, Mike, yes or no, Flames make the playoffs, I would have said, yeah, I think they'll bounce back. I thought Huberdeau was going to bounce back. I thought they were going to get a full year away from Sutter, some excitefulness. There's not that much pressure. Hannafin's playing for a contract. I liked the way this team looked. And they look horrible. And you mentioned Huberdeau's deal, okay, how it just kicked in. How do you go through a rebuild with something like that?
It's an anchor.
You can't trade him. You can't trade him. So, and even Kadri's contract, think of those 2 guys, man, and the money they're making. They have to produce for this team to be successful, and they're not, right? And then the fear too, is Hannafin going to leave? Full stop. Is he gone? So, I don't know, man. Well, that's an interesting conversation too. At what point would they trade Hannafin?
At what point did they just start trying to trade all of these guys?
Fair
and
enough.
Just strip it down? They're paying Huberdeau and Kadri a combined $17.5 million over the next 7 seasons. Huberdeau has an 8th year on his deal, but at least for 7 years, they're both under contract at a combined cap hit of $17.5 million. And you said it, man. Kadri's been terrible. In 8 games, 0 goals, 1 assist. Huberdeau, 4 points in 8 games. It's really as simple as you said. If your best players aren't producing and your goaltending sucks, I mean, good night, pack your bags. Like, I think we're at the point now where it's safe to assume that the Flames aren't going to make the playoffs. And again, we both had them as like a bounce back candidate. They're going to not maybe return to like the division winners that they were a couple of years ago, but we thought, okay, they're going to be in the mix for a playoff spot. They're going to have a better season than last year. And now they just look terrible again. And it's sad to see. And I can't wait to see the Heritage Classic on Sunday, because it's almost like this is a loser leaves town match. I believe Bill Simmons coined that.
Nice.
I could be wrong about that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, the loser of that game, it's like, pack your bags. Your season's basically over. You
got me excited, Bruno, of a fire sale, though, because Treliving, man, it's got that connection. I'll take Rasmus Anderson, man. Right-handed D-man. Why not? I'll take it. Brad, hit the phone. Okay, Bruno, before we wrap it up here, let's play What's More Likely. Okay? What's more likely, Anthony Bruno? The Oilers win the division or the Flames make the playoffs?
What's more likely?
Yeah.
Oh, man. They're both not going to happen, but I'll say what's more likely is that the Flames make the playoffs, because I don't think the Oilers have any chance of winning the division. But I think, as terrible as these chances might be, I think the Flames could potentially make the playoffs if their stars actually start playing well, and if Jacob Markstrom starts stopping the puck like he did the year that they won the division, and they had like, what was it, like 110 points or something like that. So I think if their goaltending turns around, they have a decent chance to make the playoffs.
Okay, so you think, like, let's confirm this. You think the record the Flames have to put up to get to like the mid 90s the rest of the way, and now based on their start is a over 100 point pace. So you think that's more likely than what the Oilers would have to do? Because it's not that like the Oilers have to go bananas to,
well, they kind of do. Like, even the Oilers, to get into the playoffs, they have to play I believe at this point at like a 99 point pace the rest of the way. And if they lose another game, it's going to be 100 101 point pace, just to get like to that 93 94 point range. And if they want to win the division, geez, they're going to have to play at like an insane pace to get past Vegas, or even the Kings for that matter. So
yeah. Well, if I'm not mistaken, the record's typically what, like 15 games over 500. Like you said, it's always in the 90s.
Yeah,
about 15 games. So then if the Oilers, I mean, they have to be 20 games over 500 the rest of the way in like 70 something. Well, that's even to make the playoffs. 15 games over 500 to make the playoffs.
Yeah, fair enough. To make the playoffs and to win the division,
they gotta be
considering
more.
how well Vegas is playing and how well we project them to play. I mean, the Oilers are going to have to play out of their minds to win the division. So both,
it's gonna be fun, man.
Both looking very grim right now. Both of those scenarios you laid out.
Okay. One more. Flames or Senators? What's more likely making the playoffs?
It's the Senators.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I still don't think the Senators are going to make the playoffs, but they just seem to, I mean,
Bruno, you're going to get every
they
Canadian
seem to have more of their
to
shit together than the Flames do, but both teams don't have their shit together. I'll just say that I think the Senators just as a whole have more talent than Calgary does.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'll give the edge to the Senators.
Okay. To wrap it up here, Bruno, any other Canadian market you want to pick on? Let's go to the Jets next, the Canucks, Montreal. They all started well. Who would have thought? Those teams?
There's no other bone I have to pick with any other Canadian team. The Canucks are playing well. The Jets are fine. The Leafs are good. The Habs are tanking as usual. I mean, I shouldn't say they're tanking. Like,
they're winning.
they actually are winning some games, but we know that they're not very good and that they're still building for the future. So that's about it. My target is set right on the province of Alberta, man. Figure it out, because it is a disaster.
Again, it's going to be fun to watch, to see. Because again, if the Flames can go on a heater and make it interesting, that's awesome. And same with the Oilers. I'd love to see them make it a chase for the division and really turn it on. It'd be great.
Yeah, no, it'll be great to see. Like when McDavid comes back, and I hope he's healthy, because the NHL is just way better when that guy's healthy. I mean, that's just the most obvious thing anyone could say. Yeah. Then they could go on a heater and they have a chance to rack up a ton of wins. But man, if he's not healthy, I mean, pray for Edmonton, pray for their fans. pray for the province of Alberta. But is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up this podcast?
I feel like this was a pretty intense episode. Bruno talked about our boys, talked about some national rivals we have. We talked about some illegal activity by an NHL player. So I think we checked all the boxes, man, but this was a fun one. I like, again, it's exciting when you see situations where like they write like a book. Is something going to come crashing down? Is something going to recover? Can this team pull it off? Will that team pull it off? That's why we're sports fans, man. So it gives you more, based on the starts of these teams, it gives you more reason to pay attention, right? Like, let's face it, the Oilers, okay? Yeah, I root for the Oilers. Sure, I root for the Oilers. Look over my left shoulder, there's a Gretzky jersey, right? But had the Oilers started out, say, 5-1-1, okay? It's boring. From a neutral perspective, yeah, that's what we expected. So whatever. Whereas now the Oilers are interesting. I'm making a point now to watch the Oilers and see how they turn it around. And the same thing goes for the Flames and how their season unfolds. So like I said, as a neutral, it's great and I love it. And by that, I don't mean that I'm happy to see these teams do poorly. I'm just excited to see what's going to happen.
And the Leafs were in the same boat last season when they got off to a terrible start and all the fire Keefe rumors were starting and people were in shambles in Toronto. They thought, here we go again. This team sucks. And then they turned it around. So we'll see if these other Canadian teams can turn it around, because as you said, it just makes the sport more interesting. It gets more eyeballs on the action. And we love it as content creators because it gives us more to talk about. So This is great. I can't wait to see how this plays out over the next week. When we do our next podcast, the Oilers might be like 1-9. Who knows? I mean, shit. It's fun times in Canadian NHL markets right now. But
they better not get in the lottery because everyone knows they're going to win it. If
they get in the lottery, you know they're getting the number one pick.
Ugh.
Jesus. Okay. All right. That is going to do it for episode 121 of the Gluttons for Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. If you're a new listener or a longtime listener and you really enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on either Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you really enjoy the content, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and ring the notification bell while you're at it so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. For Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. Go Leafs, go! And we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.